This hour is brought to you by Jeremy Temple Law Office of Bloomington. Personal injury, criminal, business, whatever you need, Jeremy Temple Law Office will get you taken care of.
Well, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin yang, come along.
Well, come along and welcome aboard Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle Leary here on this Monday, January 6th. My goodness, I cannot believe that's where we are. But we are, man. Thanks a lot, my running mate, Todd Leary. How are you, sir?
I'm great. We can quit talking about how fast the year's gone by, and now we can talk about how slow it is.
Well, plus the weather's not supposed to be that bad still this week, the temperatures. I'm like,
it's awesome.
What that just means, I keep looking over my shoulder. You're waiting for that big old 3-foot snowfall to drop.
Yeah, 17 degrees and 55 inches of snow. Yeah, I'm waiting.
Man, a busy week last week in Indiana University's landscape of sports. So much going on. Of course, we were down in Jacksonville for the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl, which ended in excruciating fashion. Then Indiana, of course, on the road at Maryland. A loss that was not unexpected, so it's not like that really adds any angst to the season. I think how they're playing is starting to add some angst to a lot of people, but they've got a couple of home games coming up, and we'll get a better look to see if they can show some improvement and do some things better than they've been doing, Todd. I mean, that's basically all you can do.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I guess I can say we kind of defended that easy schedule throughout the whole November and a lot of December, just kind of explaining away that it could be a good thing. It was a good thing for them to be able to get some cohesiveness and play together and get some of that stuff out of their system and learn from some mistakes. And I think that's kind of the key point in all of this right now is that we're seeing some of the same mistakes, and we're seeing them make a lot of the same errors, and we're seeing a lot of the same guys make those errors, and that's what that's why Indiana fans become frustrated, and us, you and I included in that group.
Yeah, and you talk a lot about coaching, whether it's the coaching, whether it's the players, and this and that. But one thing that I was thinking about is, we look at Tom Allen and him, and he's not the greatest coach when it comes from X's and O's right now. He's inexperienced. He's got a lot to learn in that regard. But he also has a lot of positives that either equal to or outweigh some of that stuff. I mean, I think to a man 113 deep, they would run through a flaming brick wall for him.
Right.
And you can see that, you can hear that, you can feel that. They will play. They want to play for him. Not sure that same kind of thing is going on the basketball side. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying I'm not sure that it is. So there's not, I'm just could be, may not be.
It's. I know you're not stirring the pot. I know it, but it's two totally different, dynamics. Coach Allen, I mean, that's his MO. That's what he is. He's a rah guy. He's he's a come on, let's go kind of. He wants to be clapping and going crazy and screaming and telling you. He wants to tell you how good you're doing. He wants to tell you when you're making mistakes, but he tries to be really positive about that. And it's kind of a new wave philosophy of coaching. I mean, it's not, especially in Indiana. I mean, it's not been necessarily the way it's been in the past.
When it's called millennial, I thought.
It's different. But like Archie, I think Archie's trying to kind of do the same thing right now. Like you see him trying to be positive and trying to. In games, at least, I should say, you see him trying to. That's my point. In games, I'm not sure that we're seeing things how things really may be, and so that's my point. I'm not sure. You want to when you played for various coaches. You played for a famous coach as well, but you played for different people who did different things and different styles of getting you there, and I don't know. I'm not sure that they're responding. I see Archie trying to adapt. I see him trying to change his style because he's not a rah-rah guy. He's he said when you make a mistake, he wants you to know about it, fix it, and not do it again. And
right. Which is legitimate.
We all understand that. And right now, like you'll see, we've had in the last 2 basketball games, we have had 5 possessions where there was no defensive pressure. And I'm talking about Indiana with the ball. There's no defensive pressure on the guy dribbling the basketball, and he just simply dribbles it off his foot. And it's a turnover that goes to the other team. And in doing so, Archie Miller has clapped his hands. They've shown him twice out of those 5 on TV. And you know how I am when the game goes on. Whenever anything happens, I got one eye on the coaching staff and the bench and one eye on the floor. I want to see who's reacting to what and how guys are doing stuff. I think it's a big part of the game. I think it, I think it's a big aspect of how well they're going to do overall. So I like to keep track of how all the coaches are responding to different mistakes and positive things that happen. But Archie's trying to overlook some mistakes. It's just crazy. I mean, 4 of those 5 dribble off the foot situations I'm talking about are Armand Franklin and Rob Finney. I mean, 2 guys who you've got to have the ball in their hands, and they have to be your guys who you can count on and who are solid with the basketball. And Devontae has made, same number, 5 really, really bad passes in 2 games. And it's just unacceptable. That's stuff those guys have to clean up. I mean, can you sit there and say use the bench and teach them a lesson? Yeah, you probably can against Notre Dame. Or I'm sorry, not Notre Dame, against Northwestern, the game that's coming up. You probably can in that game, but you can't against Ohio State. And you can't against Maryland, and you can't in those. You can't do that and expect to win. And so, I will be interested to see if some of this stuff starts to get cleaned up. I think Archie Miller has tried to take a new approach to things and be positive, and I don't know that that's necessarily his MO.
And it's not necessarily it's working either.
Right. But I think he's trying something different. I think he was probably browbeating them down on mistakes, and then all of a sudden you get guys playing scared, which I'm telling you is the least. I am not advocating right now saying that every time they make a mistake, they need to get yanked out of the game, because you can't play that way.
It's funny you say that, because last night in rewatching the game, I noticed a couple instances and a couple of different players, Al Durham being one of them, and it may have been Devontae Green, which it couldn't have been him because he's not this, but they had a 15-foot shot and tried to get a 4-foot shot instead, which that's okay, except for it was into the paint and you've got 3 different defenders in there. And I'm like, how the hell do you think that's getting through?
Right.
But you have a 15-foot elbow jumper right there. Boom. I mean, it's just, that's a gimme. It's a free throw. And they don't take that. They're not taking it. They're passing those shots up out of, I don't know if it's out of fear or what it is, but I understand trying to get the best shot you can get. But there's a point to where you've got a good enough shot. You should be able to hit within that range. Yeah.
And one of the best examples you can really come up with, and you want to watch a point guard who has a great relationship. I shouldn't say that, because I don't believe in the point guard position anymore. I think it's just a guard position, but he's the lead guard for Michigan State, and Cassius Winston and his relationship with Tom Izzo and how they are, how Cassius Winston is out on the floor. Look, I'm telling you straight up today, Rob Finney, physically and from a talent perspective, is better than Cassius Winston. Armand Franklin is probably better than Cassius Winston, but Cassius Winston has the it factor, and he has that. It is. He thinks he's better than you. He goes out on the court and he does things that
they're trying to show it.
He gets the ball where it needs to go. Most of the time, that is not him shooting the ball. That's him getting the ball to someone else for them to shoot it. But when they need a basket, he shoots it, and he gets a good shot, and he gets to where he wants to shoot it from, and he gets to the rim, and he gets fouled, and he uses his body. And if you watch him, this is something I don't see Indiana players do, and I saw Maryland do it the other day. As soon as Devontae Green picked up a foul at the beginning of the game, and he got a cheap foul, it was a foul, it was a hand check foul, but it was a cheap one. 2 possessions in a row after that. You want to know what Anthony Cowan did? He drove the ball straight at Devontae Green and drove it into the lane and drove it in and laid it in. and he made the first one. He missed the second one. But in his mind, he knew Devontae Green has one foul. I'm going to try to get a second foul on him before, right away, right now. And that's a guard using his brain and knowing the situations of the game and knowing what you need to do. And I really feel like I know Cassius Winston would have done the same thing. I know he would have had that thought in his mind, even if he didn't drive it. He would have been waiting for his opportunity to pick up that second foul on the guy guarding him. And when you watch him control a basketball game, I watched their game with Michigan yesterday, and I heard the announcer say something, and I was overly impressed with how the announcers talked about this. But they said Cassius Winston is controlling the other 9 players on the floor. And they was right. Like, he was controlling all the guys on the defense. He was controlling all the guys on the defense. They were always having to keep track of where he was. And then his guys, he was making sure they were going where they were supposed to go. And, man, when you watched it, it was you want to watch really, really good guard play, go watch Cassius Winston's game against Michigan yesterday. It was really impressive.
Yeah, Indiana has been missing that. We talked about this on the postgame show with no leadership, and Cassius Winston is giving them all of that wrapped up into one nice package.
I think we really thought that especially in his second year, that was really going to be Rob's role. I mean, I really thought he was the cerebral player that thought the game through and knew all the situations and knew what was going on. And I've said it, for almost 2 weeks now, like, there's something going on with Rob. Like, I don't know if it's just a confidence issue. I don't know if he's got some lingering, injuries that we don't really know that much about, because, IU doesn't tell anybody anything about injuries. But there's something going on with Rob, because he has zero confidence, and he's not playing near as well as he was last year, let alone we expected, a little bit more from him, some improvement in his sophomore year. And there's something going on, because he's not what we thought he was going to be.
Yeah, because we expected him to kind of be the floor leader, whether it's a point guard spot or whatever you want to call it.
The sophomore version of Cassius Winston, which is good, but improvement on your freshman year, but starting to control everything that's going on. And last year, I thought last year he was like bursting at the seams, wanting to be that guy. But when you had Romeo, and I'm not blaming Romeo, it's just the dynamic of that team and how it was made up. There wasn't a situation that allowed Rob to take over and be in control of that team. And, having the makeup of this team is begging for somebody to step up and be the cerebral leader, be the guy that keeps everybody, where they're supposed to be and gets the big basket when you need it. Right now, if Indiana really needed a basket, where do they go? Where do they go? I mean, they can't just give the ball to Trace Jackson Davis, because somebody's got to feed him the post. Somebody's got to feed him the ball. They can't just go to Devontae, because he'll jack up who knows what shot. I mean, if they've got 15 seconds on the shot clock, the game is tied, or 15 seconds on the game clock, the game is tied, and they're throwing it in bounds right now, who are they giving it to? Who would you say they give it to? I honestly don't think there's one person that it's going to be Devontae. I think we would assume that. But why wouldn't it be somebody that drives and kicks it to Devontae or does something else? But I don't know who that would be.
Absolutely. We got plenty to talk about today. Trust me, a lot more on Indiana basketball, more on Indiana football, of course, with Tom Allen having to fill a couple of coaching spots now, as Kalen DeBoer, we know, was leaving to become the head coach of Fresno State, taking with him William Inns, Indiana's special teams coordinator, which I had posted that I thought was addition by subtraction. Because I think, I don't mean to be rough, but I mean, Indiana's special teams directly led to 3 of the 5 losses, in my opinion, this season. But so anyway, you got that going on and plenty more. But coming up next, Don Fischer, the voice of the Hoosiers, is going to join us. Mike Schumann's on the program today as well. So we got a ton to get to. Text coming in, Tim asked, can Indiana improve enough to beat Maryland back in 20 days? We'll talk about that in the third segment as well after Don Fischer. But coming up next, the voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer, brought to you by Jeremy Temple Office. Stay tuned. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Coyle and Leary, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios.
Hello, everyone. everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs, Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lewis, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville.
Bad theater seats, cheap Halloween masks, my apartment, all things with obstructed views. Add to these large trucks and buses. 18-wheelers and large buses have big blind spots, and like my apartment, they don't always have the best view. Bus and truck drivers deal with blind spots around the entire vehicle. Always take care not to ride alongside or too close behind them. Our roads, our safety. Learn more at sharetheroadsafely.gov.
You're on the line with Jamal Meeks, former Indiana Hoosier, number 23, 1992. And I'm on the beat with Jim Coyle.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
You see, I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary here on this Monday. And, of course, we couldn't start this week off any better than the great Don Fischer, the voice of the Hoosiers. Brought to you by Jeremy Temple Law Office of Bloomington, right here on the square, 123 South College Avenue, right off of Kirkwood on the southwest side of the square. Make sure you take up Jeremy Temple for any of your law needs, personal injury, criminal, or business. Jeremy Temple will get you taken care of. Don, I know it was a busy week last week at football, basketball going on, a lot of traveling in between. Unfortunately, the football season comes to an end, and not the end that a lot of people would like to have seen. But what a great time. The Gator Bowl was an extremely popular experience, it seemed.
Well, no question, Jim. Being in the Taxpayer Gator Bowl this year was tremendous for this football program. To win 8 games, go into it 8-4, and to have a season like Indiana had from a win-loss standpoint was just terrific. And it should spur a lot of excitement for next season for this Indiana football program that continues to build under Tom Allen and to get better in so many different areas. And without question, the bowl game itself between Indiana and Tennessee was exciting. It brought about a lot of thinking that this football team has arrived in the sense of being able to compete with some of the better teams in the country. And even though Tennessee has had a couple of down years, they were really playing great football at the end of the season. And they're a terrific defensive football team. They did some things in the first half that I didn't think people could do to Indiana, but they held Indiana to 69 total yards in the first half of that ball game. And then Indiana just took off in the second half. They found their offensive footing. Peyton Ramsey started performing like he can. The pressure that was on him in the first half, incidentally, by Tennessee was dramatic. And let's face it, we've criticized the defense a little bit throughout the season for not living up to expectations. But man, in the first half of that football game on Thursday in Jacksonville, the defense stepped up and played terrific in the first half of that game. They held Tennessee out of the end zone. All they could finish with was field goals in the first half, and 6-3 at halftime. After gaining only 69 total yards in the first half, Jim, was that was an amazing scenario because Tennessee dominated the first half of that football game. And let's face it, if Indiana's offense hadn't come around, it could have been a rout in the second half. But they did. Indiana, jumps out and gets a 22-9 lead, and then they couldn't hold on to it at the end. We've seen that happen before to Indiana football teams. But the biggest reason why they didn't hang on, in my opinion, was the onside kick. And that was a mistake by the coaching staff, in my opinion, as well. Special teams have to step up at that point. They've got to be aware of it. Buck Sewell, our color commentator on our broadcast, told everybody exactly what the scenario was going into that onside kick, that it could very well take place, and Indiana didn't seem to be ready for it. And that's the shame of it all. And obviously they scored a couple of touchdowns in the last few minutes of the game to take the lead, and Indiana couldn't finish it off with their opportunity at the end. So honestly, despite the fact that it was such a terrific football game in so many ways, it was a very disappointing one in the finish for Indiana.
Yeah, absolutely. And you hate to see that after such a great season with so many positive things. And there's still lots more positives going on. And I tell you, the showing by the fans supporting Indiana was pretty daggone good. And I was very surprised by that. But I got to be honest with you, when I got to the stadium, I was blown away by the amount of Tennessee people that were there.
Well, Tennessee fans follow. You've always seen them, and the university has their program has such tradition and such great following, and it's been that way forever. I mean, you got to think about this, Jim. This Tennessee football program had been in 52 previous bowl games prior to the Tax.
That's amazing.
53 bowl games for this program in their history.
Unbelievable.
Indiana's 12. So you got to think about their tradition, their experience level. They hadn't been to a bowl game for a couple of years, and Jeremy Pruitt came over last year and has made such a difference with this team and got them playing tremendous defense. And they, in the first half, they dominated in Indiana from a defensive standpoint. They literally didn't allow Indiana to do much of anything in that first half. And Indiana did a lot of different things, a lot of shifting that was new, trying to throw Tennessee's defense off, but they weren't thrown off in the least. And when Indiana went to their normal offense in the second half, or what they normally do, and stopped all the shifting and that kind of stuff, it proved to be a real benefit to the Indiana program because Peyton Ramsey finally had some time to throw the football. His receivers were able to get open. They just did a much better job in the second half, and they really just kind of it looked to me like they just kind of ran their basic offense in the second half. They didn't go to all the shifting and through all the motion and that kind of stuff that they did in the first half to kind of try Tennessee or throw Tennessee off their game. So just a terrific performance in many respects in the second half, unfortunately. The defense, who played so well throughout this football game, didn't hold at the end, and we've seen that happen before.
Oh, absolutely. If you'd have told me that they could have done what they did, given up the yards that they gave up in that first half and only been down 6-3, I would have
taking that bet all day long. It's just unbelievable. And then the adjustments made at halftime by Indiana, it made it an incredible game, and it put them in position to win it. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, like you said, like we had hoped for it to. And you mentioned Peyton Ramsey. Now he brings up, we've got a lot of things going on, of course. Kalen DeBoer moving on now to Fresno State. William Inge going with him, the special teams coach from Indiana, will become the defensive coordinator out there. And there's a lot of talk possibly of Peyton Ramsey being a grad transfer out there so he can play his last year.
Well, Peyton Ramsey, I think, is going to have a lot of options to his availability. I don't think just because Fresno State would be someplace where he could go and play right away because of Kalen DeBoer and Kalen knowing his abilities and that kind of thing. And I don't think there's any reason why Peyton wouldn't go with him in the sense of that be a great opportunity. But I have a gut feeling that Peyton Ramsey is going to be one of those guys, if he decides to go into the NCAA transfer portal, will have all kinds of opportunities to go elsewhere because he has had such a terrific year for this football program. I hope he stays at IU, but at the same time, he's going to have a lot of options as to what he wants to do if he wants to play a fifth year, which I think he does. He wants to play some more football if he can possibly do that. He's not going to be an NFL guy. I don't think there's any question about that, and I'm sure he's still thinking that that's a possibility in some ways, but I think Peyton's pretty realistic about his abilities, and I think, honestly, he's got 1 year of football remaining in his career, in my opinion, and then he'll end up being a coach someplace. We'll just have to kind of wait and see on all that. But my prediction is he's got 1 year left of playing time, and then after that, I think you're going to see this young man go into coaching because I think that's what he wants to do with his life.
I agree with you 1,000%. That's the exact path that I can see him go. And that's the one caveat to maybe seeing him staying in Indiana for that last year is if he knows that's where his path is going to be, and then he could move right into being a grad assistant after that. But who knows? There's so many different scenarios, like you said. Tom Allen.
The other thing about that, too, Jim, is that he's going to have to fight for that top spot again in Indiana. So, there's he can get some guarantees from other places, i.e., Kalen DeBoer and Fresno State, or maybe some other places where he could get a guarantee if he's going to be the number one guy unless somebody beats him out. And at Indiana, he's already been beaten out one time, and at least in Tom Allen's mind he was. And I don't think there's any question that Michael Penix showed his abilities, too, this year. So that quarterback fight that they had last fall could play a big role in what Peyton's thinking at this point.
Absolutely. And then Tom Allen, of course, now has two coaching positions to fill. I mentioned earlier, offensive coordinator Kalen DeBoer gone to Fresno State, but he is now taking with him William Inge, who is Indiana special teams coordinator. So now you've got two spots that need to be filled, but it's a good time of year to be doing that.
Right, no question. Bill Inge is a good coach. There's no doubt about that. I don't know who made the calls in regard to the onside kick and Indiana's ability to defend that on Saturday, but nevertheless, you've got to be able to make those plays, and you've got to be smart enough to handle that situation. I think this Indiana football team has a lot of upside, still a ton of upside to go, and I still think that no matter who the coaches are at this juncture, under Tom Allen, they're going to get this team better next season. It's going to be a much better program than it was this year, but they're going to have a tougher time winning games next season because the schedule doesn't affect them in a positive way in the sense of who they're going to play. They've won the games they were supposed to win this year. They're going to have to do exactly the same thing next year and then find a way to knock somebody off if they hope to be an improved football team.
Absolutely. And then on the hardwood, of course, Indiana coming off of a tough loss at Maryland, but it's not like that was a shocker. I mean, Maryland at home is a tough place to play in the Big Ten on the road. But sometimes they got down a little further than I think a lot of fans are comfortable.
Well, I think the big problem right now and the thing that kind of concerns me the most, and we'll probably be able to hear from Archie Miller tonight on Inside IU Basketball with the coach, I think the thing that concerns me the most is how eerily this team is resembling what happened last year at the same time. How they started out so strong during the early part of the season, and then they started to see some chinks in that armor a little bit. They started to struggle defensively in a few ball games, and when the defense started to struggle, it affected the offensive end of the floor. Those kinds of things really kind of bother me at this point. And I can't wait to talk to Coach Miller tonight on our talk show and find out his thinking process at this juncture, because I know Archie believes that this team is a better team than what he had one season ago. It's a deeper team, but the depth in this basketball team really hasn't helped this ball club all that much at this point, especially the last 3 ball games. And getting big leads and then letting them slip away, or being in a ball game against an outstanding team like Maryland and then letting that ball game slip, just into oblivion, losing by 30 points at one point late in that contest. The 16-point margin at the end doesn't reflect how dominant Maryland was in the middle part of that second half. Those are the kinds of things right now that I think are concerning. They've got to find a way to get some outside shooting that will allow the inside game to be more prevalent once again. All these things are issues that I think this basketball team has to fix pretty quickly if they're going to have a successful Big Ten season.
Yeah, and they've got probably just what they need right now, a home game coming up against Northwestern on Wednesday, but that's followed by what's going to be a pretty stiff test with the Ohio State Buckeyes coming in over the weekend.
Don't even go there. You got to beat Northwestern first. And anybody that thinks that Northwestern can't beat you is crazy. I mean, I know Northwestern doesn't look great, and they're not a great basketball team this year. But in this league, if you are looking past anybody, you're in trouble. And that's just the way this league has been playing. I mean, take a look at the Purdue Illinois game yesterday. I mean, what Illinois did to Purdue was unbelievable. And these kinds of games are becoming more prevalent in the Big Ten. It doesn't matter who you are or how you or what your reputation is. If you go into a game looking past somebody, you're in trouble.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, it is the craziest. This may be the craziest season I have seen to date as far as the parity and how it has continued to lay out. It's not subsided a single bit.
Nope, it is not. And like I said, this is going to be a grinder of a Big Ten season, and changes can happen in a heartbeat. And I think if you get on a hot streak, man, you better stay on that hot streak, because if you get off of it, it might be a long time getting it back.
Absolutely. And so tonight's the radio show out at the Holiday Inn.
Yep, 7:05. We're back to Inside IU Basketball with Archie Miller.
There you go, the great Don Fischer. Don, I can't thank you enough as always.
Thanks, Jim, for having me. Appreciate it.
You betcha. There's the great Don Fischer, brought to you by Jeremy Temple Law Office of Bloomington, located right on the square, southwest side on Kirkwood, 123 South College Avenue. Take care of your needs, personal injury, criminal, or business. That's the great Jeremy Temple Office. We've got a lot more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle Leary. We're back with that to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett. Hey, this is Michael Lord, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville.
Bad theater seats, cheap Halloween masks, my apartment, all things with obstructed views. Add to these large trucks and buses. 18-wheelers and large buses have big blind spots, and like my apartment, they don't always have the best view. Bus and truck drivers deal with blind spots around the entire vehicle. Always take care not to ride alongside or too close behind them. Our roads, our safety. Learn more at sharetheroadsafely.gov.
This is former Indiana basketball player Brian Evans, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Just maybe guys, when it's not going in, getting a little bit too rushed, maybe losing a little bit of conviction in keeping it simple offensively.
No, I don't think so. I think, at the end of the day, we've gone through some tough stretches here offensively, but it didn't impact our defense for a good portion of the game. Our rebounding kind of caved in at one point in time when we did get some stops. They probably got 3 or 4 rebounds on 2 possessions in the game. But at some point, you have to continue to compete. You have to continue to play tough and play through it. And, at the 10-minute mark or 12-minute mark, it's an 8, 10-point game, 12-point game. You're right there. Just kind of stay with it. You can't let the floor sort of fall out on a couple plays and then let it become a problem. And teams change throughout the course of a season. Our team's going through one right now. We've got to find our way to get back out of it. We'll do that. And then, the league's a long league season. There's a lot of teams that are going to lose by 1, lose by 20, whatever it is. You got to navigate the road, and that's what we're trying to do right now.
There's Indiana basketball coach Archie Miller talking after the loss at Maryland over the weekend. Kind of eerily reminds me, Todd, of what Don Fischer said, and he talked about this team reminding him something of last year, and then Archie's words right there talking about this team going through this funk or whatever it is that they'll get out of it. That's kind of what they said at the beginning of that streak last year, unfortunately.
Yeah, I get the comparison because of the bad loss. This team is nothing similar to last year's team. Think about there is a guy that's on this basketball team right now that even with the struggles that they have, I'm going to say is at least a top 3 freshman across the country and probably the best freshman in the Big Ten. And besides all of that, if you take those 2 statements away, he's just as solid. You can build an entire team around him. And last year, Indiana didn't have that. Romeo Langford, you cannot build an entire team around Romeo Langford. Romeo Langford is an incredibly gifted player, but you cannot build a team around Romeo Langford. You can hope he plays really well and makes your team win. Trace Jackson Davis is different. Like, you can build your entire team and game plan and schemes and everything around Trace Jackson Davis because he's not selfish. He's incredibly talented, and he's just a different type of player. I am not sure. One thing I think that we need, or I definitely need to step back on a little bit is Rob Fennessy is playing. He's been dealing with injury. They talked about the fact he had, up till a month ago, he had only been able to practice 3 or 4 times, which is, unheard of this time of year. But, his ability to play with Trace Jackson Davis is still in its first year. So even though he's a sophomore and played great last year, definitely had spurts of playing great, he's only played with a guy like this for 1 year. And it's a totally different team than what they had the makeup of it last year. And the ceiling for this team is so incredibly high. It's crazy. And they are not even close to scratching the surface of it. That's why I'm so optimistic about them.
And I agree with what you're saying about Trace Jackson Davis. The only caveat I'd add to that is they're not doing that though. They can't. You can build a team around him, but they seem to be struggling with coming to that concept on a consistent basis.
Yeah,
because it seems like it sure does work when they kind of put their minds to it, but they just can't seem to keep their minds put to it.
You know, even in the Maryland game, like even though they got behind by so many. I was watching the game again, and 6 minutes into the second half, I'm sitting there saying to myself, how in the world is this lead going to get to 30? Like, it doesn't even make any sense. Like, there just didn't seem like there was enough time left. They were down by 3 points with 14 minutes to go in the game, 36-33. And you're just sitting there going, to know the outcome already and know that within the next 10 minutes of playing time, they're going to be down 30. I was just sitting there like, it would be almost impossible. Like, I would bet you $10,000 there's no way they could be down 30 in this game. And so they were executing. I said this in our post-game show that we do at Yogi's after every game. I said during that post-game show, they started the game out with an identifiable game plan that I could tell you what it was, and they were executing it. And that's one of the very first times this year that I think I could tell you that. So I do think they're improving. I do think they're starting to understand and execute better. They are making it, they didn't take a 3-pointer until we were 10 minutes into this ball game. And I kept bringing that up to you, every possession that a click would go by. They weren't shooting any 3-pointers. They had a definite game plan of getting that ball. Even if it wasn't throwing it into the post, it was driving it into the lane. Devontae Green shot a couple jumpers in the lane. Armand shot one in the lane. Finney. They were trying to get the ball where it needed to go. I think, I know you didn't ask me this question, but I think the guy right now who needs to step up and be the leader of this team is Al Durham. I think Al Durham has to step his play up and be the guy that Indiana needs him to be and wants him to be. And if they get that, I think if they get that, I think Finney will kind of fall into place a little bit better. But right now, I feel like they're trying to force it with Finney to be the floor leader.
Which is whom they expected, or at least we expected. And maybe that was wrong on our parts to expect that. But we were kind of led to believe that he was the quote-unquote point guard that I know that you don't like to use that position right now with his team, and I understand. But, everyone's been led to believe that he's the point guard. And he's going to be a guy that's kind of spearheading the offense, and you've got Al and Devontae Green on the 2 spots or 2.5, whatever you want to call them, right? With those 2 guards. So just because it hasn't worked out like that yet, and then with all these different rotations and substitutions and sets, and it's not really. It's just been a weird. It's just been a weird start to the season.
Yeah, I mean the biggest difference, I guess, in philosophy that Archie Miller and I would be, I feel like he feels like he has to give guys an opportunity to play in every game. And I just don't see that. I figure I've always been under the notion you had to earn your way to get onto the court. I don't care if it's for 1 minute or 10 minutes or 30 minutes. And, I get you've got to give guys rest and give guys a break here and there. But if Trace Jackson Davis comes, I don't care how many mistakes in a row Trace Jackson Davis has made. If he sits out more than 2 consecutive minutes, it's too many. I'm like, you cannot go. He should have 3 breaks of 2 minutes apiece in each game and play and average 34 minutes a game. That's it. If his conditioning is not to that point yet, then you got to get him in that shape.
Yeah, and he's also got to get to the point. Now, he's a freshman. He's got to get to the point where he doesn't make that horrible second foul that he picked up against Maryland. Wow, on the wrong end of the court, completely unnecessary, and he sits himself because of that.
And we've said this numerous times. Like, one of the things we're so impressed about with him is he's not put himself in that position. He's not made those freshman mistakes. And I said it after the game the other day. I thought this was the very first game that Trace Jackson Davis played like a freshman. And
is that a sign of frustration?
It's a sign of, they're playing against another team that, although I want to say that kid that they were playing against that was big on the inside was only a sophomore. So it's not like he's some fifth-year veteran or grad transfer that, just abused him. I think the game overall sped up for Trace Jackson Davis. I think he, I don't know. I don't want to call it not ready to play, because I hate when people say that, because it makes it seem like, you didn't prepare at all. And I just don't think that's ever accurate. But
well, let's talk more in depth about the Indiana situation in the next hour. We'll get there. People can join us there. There's still a few things I want to talk about here. Illinois and Purdue, Minnesota, Northwestern, Michigan State, Michigan all played yesterday. Of course, the bigger game on paper was Michigan State, and they handled Michigan 87-69. Michigan State has now gone from the top to drop down, and to me, they've risen back to looking like they're at the top of the Big Ten right now. They're playing the best basketball, and I'm putting them ahead of Ohio State at the moment. But Michigan State seems like they're kind of coming around. They had a lot of things happening. They lost Josh Langford. The Cassius Winston had an issue with his brother committing suicide, I think. So his mental state has been kind of tough for him, but they seem to be getting back to where they need to get to, and I think they're at the top. So that was a big game, the big win over Michigan yesterday.
It was, but let's look at that. Okay, they're what are they, 3-0, 4-0 in the Big Ten right now? They're 3-0
at least, whatever.
Okay, well, they've beat Rutgers, Northwestern, Illinois, and now
Illinois, Michigan.
And now Michigan. Michigan played without their best player. Isaiah Livers didn't play in this game.
No, I'm just talking about their level of play right now.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is they're 4-0, and they have beat the 4 bottom feeders in the Big Ten.
Well, Michigan's not a bottom feeder.
Michigan did not have their best player, and they played at Michigan State.
Illinois is not a bottom feeder. Illinois is better than you give them credit for.
Not on the road. Not on the road, they're not.
Well,
and they played at Michigan State. They played at Michigan State, lost by 20, and they didn't even look competitive in that game. They're a Jekyll and Hyde home and road team. And now, we're talking about a team yesterday. That team came back home and played Purdue yesterday. First of all, let's discuss who schedules an 8 p.m. Sunday night Big Ten game the day before you go back to school after Christmas break. Who in the world schedules that game? How's that make any sense to anybody?
Money.
Coach Knight would have absolutely.
Do you know why?
Let
me tell you why. The NFL playoffs were earlier in the day, weren't they? They were over by 8 o'clock because that's when the that awards show was on. So that's why they put it to after the NFL playoffs.
Well, that didn't work out so well. Like that was poor scheduling. But I mean,
how about Purdue scoring 37 points or Illinois holding Purdue to 37 points?
Purdue did not have a single player. These are two crazy stats. Not only did they not have a single player score in double figures, they did not have one single player on their team shoot 50% or better. They shot 25% for the game, 15 for 60 overall. They were 3 of 17 from the 3-point line, and they were 4 for 10 from the free throw line. They did not have a single positive statistic on their offensive side of the basketball for them. And you know what? They are, besides the Stefanovic kid, they don't have a single guy on their team that's a shooter. I mean, they're in the same position Indiana is when it comes to outside shooting.
Purdue look horrible.
Yeah, they look terrible. But that's one of those things. Then they'll turn back around and they'll go back home. They'll go back home and do this to somebody else. Just like Illinois. Illinois just went on the road to Michigan State and looked just like this. They were down by 20 in the first half. And then they go back home and they almost beat Purdue by 30. Like it's just this league is so ridiculous right now. And you're right. Like what you just said is exactly right. I mean, Michigan State has separated themselves because they're 4-0. Yes, without a doubt. I think the surprise would be that Ohio State's 1-2. That's probably,
and most importantly, that one of those 2 losses was at home by Wisconsin, a team that we thought to be in the lower half.
And
of the
they
Big
will
Ten
be.
at least.
They definitely will be. They'll finish in the lower half of the Big Ten. And yeah, so I mean, it's just, I don't want to say there's an excuse for stuff right now, but it's just crazy how the whole Big Ten is playing like that. Somebody has got to step up. these games are not that much more difficult on the road. And you know, that's truly why the real frustrating standpoint of Indiana going on the road to Maryland is because they were right there in that game and they had not played very well. And they were down by 3 with 14 minutes to go on the road in a game that they had a chance to win, playing against a team that has zero confidence either. So anyway.
The only other Big Ten game yesterday was Minnesota hosting Northwestern, Indiana's next opponent. The Golden Gophers 77-68. They handle Northwestern okay, I guess. But that's Northwestern scores 68 points on the road. That's
there's what Don Fischer talked about a little while ago in saying that there's no one you can overlook. Yeah, there's one team you can overlook, and Northwestern is awful. I mean,
and it's kind of surprising because they were kind of trending in the right direction under Chris Collins, and things kind of went awry last year, and they don't seem to be improving this year.
Yeah, they are always going to they'll go through cycles where they're pretty good. Because they'll get a couple of players in there that
they can write it up,
that can play, and the academics are such a big part there. Recruiting in that area. I mean, think about it. If a kid, how many kids base their decision nowadays that have a scholarship in Division I? How many base them off of what kind of academics the school has? I mean, less than 5%, maybe less than 2%. Of those players do that, and if you have a choice to go play at Nebraska or Northwestern, you're going to choose Nebraska unless you're a brainiac and are really looking at your degree as being most of those kids are thinking they're going to play in the NBA. I don't care who they are; they're all thinking that, it's just tough to recruit at Northwestern.
Yep. We got more basketball. We'll talk about that in the next hour. So if you can stay with us on that. Tom Allen, he's got to replace his offensive coordinator, and another coaching position is opened up now. The special teams coaching spot is opened up. William Inge is leaving to go with Kalen DeBoer out to Fresno State. And I think that was a blessing in a couple different ways, a blessing for William Inge.
Do you think he just got a flight from Jacksonville straight to Fresno? Do you think they let him come back on the plane?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, but I at the end of the day, there was not just if that was the only issue, that would be one thing. There were several gaffes on special teams this year that, in my opinion, led to losses in 3 of the 5 games. It started at Michigan State. They had really poor decision-making on receiving a punt at the 5 at the end of the first half, which they got 3 and outed and allowed Michigan State to score easily there. And then it happened again later in that game. And then there's some issues at the start to Penn State game. And you can go on and on. Anyway, I think that there would have been pressure.
I don't care if it was the only mistake. It was bad enough mistake that's just not being prepared. That is not. Everyone in the gym thought it was happening.
And but I put that, but on that one, I just got to give that fault to Tom Allen. I mean, you're the head coach. That's something that does not it didn't get by anybody else in the stadium. It seemed like everybody in the stadium expected it, except for Indiana.
But remember what I said earlier, earlier meaning a few days ago, the day after the game, in that I want my coach trusting his guys. He's in those positions.
I get that.
I want him thinking a play ahead. I want him thinking about
the head coach should be thinking a play ahead.
What are we going to be? What plays are we going to run to get this first down? Because we get 2 first downs and the game's over. I want him thinking about that.
It is upon the head coach to be thinking 2 plays ahead when it comes to game management. And that's what I'm talking about. That's where you made the greatest point yet is Coach Allen is so exuberant. He's so in the moment that he's not thinking a step or 2 ahead. And your head coach has to be that. That is what he is. That's part of what he is there for. He's the head guy, and he's got to know. Now you should be getting help from people, of course. but the coordinators are focused on their individual aspect of what they're doing. But it doesn't matter at the end of the day. He's got 2 spots to replace now, and I think it's an opportunity to make the team better. But nothing more important than that offensive coordinator hire. It's just going to be huge, and there's going to be a lot of popularity in that job. I'm sure that Tom Allen, like he has already said, his phone blew up with that opportunity came alive. There is a coaches conference he's going to be going to. I'm sure he's going to be a very popular man, being sought out by a lot of people, Todd.
Yeah, I mean it's a job people want because they're going to look at it right now and say, okay, well they just brought a coordinator in there. He did a an above average job. I'll call it a B job.
You make it quick because I'm getting the signal.
Yeah, he did a B job and he got on and got a head coaching job right off the bat. So I mean, whoever it is going to look at it like this is a good opportunity to move forward to get a head coaching position.
We got a lot more to talk about in the next hour. You can stay with us at IndianaSportsBeat.com, of course, or wherever you're listening to, or however you listen to the show. But plenty more coming up from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Mike Schumann joins us in the next hour. Back with plenty more. Coyle and Leary right after this.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lord, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville.
Bad theater seats, cheap Halloween masks, my apartment, all things with obstructed views. Add to these large trucks and buses. 18-wheelers and large buses have big blind spots, and like my apartment, they don't always have the best view. Bus and truck drivers deal with blind spots around the entire vehicle. Always take care not to ride alongside or too close behind them. Our roads, our safety. Learn more at sharetheroadsafely.gov.
Hey, this is Jordan Halls, former Indiana Hoosier. Keep up with Indiana sports on Indiana Sports Beat.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Larry. Wow, didn't expect that walk-up music. How about that one there, Todd Father?
I don't pay attention to this silliness.
That was the Blues Brothers? Yeah, that one. I don't remember. I don't quite remember that.
Jake was not even born.
Some pretty fun games on the NFL playoffs, man. Did you see any of those, Todd?
Oh, I might have peeked at him here and there.
Yeah. How about Tom Brady getting ousted in the first round? Unbelievable, and by a pick six on top of that.
Yeah, I mean, to have Brady and Drew Brees out on Wild Card weekend is pretty crazy.
Yeah, and it doesn't sound like it's going to be quite as fun. But speaking of Tom Brady, how about any current teams that's looking for a quarterback?
Can you possibly imagine?
That is a possibility.
If he came to the Colts.
I've already been thinking about that, just how preposterous that is to see. I can't see him in a Colts uniform, man.
Man, I tell you what, it would be awesome. It would just be awesome to see people's reactions.
Wait a minute, you don't know, but look who we're talking about here. Look at the one person in this situation, the wild card that makes this more than a real possibility. Jim Irsay.
Jim Irsay, yeah, no doubt. No doubt about it.
Dude, I wish I could impersonate him. There's a guy I saw on Twitter that does an impersonation of him, and it is spot on. I mean, hey, man. Hey, Tom, I like to see you come here.
Yeah,
play
well,
with
just
the
like you said,
man.
you can't do it, so let's not try.
Hostile. Let's see. A text in from Roger down in Evansville listing on the ref. I agree with Todd. The weave out front drives me crazy. It did under Crean also, and now we see it again. No screens opposite the ball for cuts to the free throw lane. Exclamation point.
Yep, he and I could sit there and complain our way through every game right now because it is ball screen city. Weave and just a bunch of movement. You know, I've always been under the understanding that there's supposed to be a reason for everything that you're doing on the offensive end of the court, whether that's cutting or setting a screen. And man, for the life of me, I can't figure out what they're doing in they're not even looking at the basket in half the passes that are being made. They're not looking in the post. They're not looking for an open cutter. They're throwing it from point A to point B because that's what they're supposed to do.
Does it concern you that someone that, of your basketball knowledge and you've been around the game this long can't figure out what they're trying to do offensively? And you've probably been exposed to as many offenses as there are.
Yeah, I mean, here's what I do want to say about that, though. You can watch the exact same thing go on in a Duke basketball game. You can watch the same thing go on in a Kentucky game, North Carolina. It's the new wave, or it's the new generation of basketball offenses, and that these guys have to get, they've got to get movement, and their way of getting movement is running sets. And the difficult part is you can watch guys come in the game and go down the floor, and you're starting to see it happen in high school games all the way down to there now. And that you'll see guys come in and you single a player out and watch him come up and down the floor. He literally doesn't move 5 steps. I mean, you could draw a circle around him over in the corner of the floor, and he doesn't move out of that corner. And unless, the play gets down to the last 5 seconds of the shot clock. And that I just don't understand. I mean, I've always been under the understanding, cuts and movement and get your guy, setting screens and cutting is the way to make the defense have to react to something. So they've got to, they've got to handle that screen, whether they're going to switch or whether they're going to fight through the screen. They've got to handle it and fight through it. And that's the opportunity from an offensive perspective to create a situation that the defense makes a mistake. And when you're just standing in the corner, they don't have any opportunity for the guy to make a mistake. Your defensive guy just standing there too.
There may be a new saying coming to Dallas. Who cut the cheese? Mike McCarthy, former Green Bay Packers coach, apparently is being hired as the head coach.
Did you just come up with that on your own?
I did.
You just make that up?
I did.
It was goofy enough. I was pretty sure you just made that one up.
Yeah. So there you go. Mike McCarthy looks like he's headed to Dallas. The story was that what's his name?
Meyer. Urban
Garrett.
Meyer.
No. Garrett wouldn't leave. He was having meetings still with players as if he was going to be the head coach.
Well,
I saw a report of that.
Until they fire you probably should.
Yeah, but it was it was apparently it was getting weird, is what the story alluded to.
Yeah,
and this was all from a legit news source. So.
Weird and Dallas Cowboys go together pretty easily in many different scenarios.
Tonight at 7:00, your number 14 women's basketball program at Indiana University hosts the Illini. 7 p.m. Simon Scott Assembly Hall for that 12-2 team, so they can keep things rolling. Favorite to win the Big Ten, man. I'm telling you, the Indiana women's team is a favorite to win the Big Ten right now.
Well, I mean, I don't really think that you're making that outlandish of a prediction there, buddy.
Well, it's outlandish only from the standpoint of historical prospects. You
Fun
look at
to talk about, yeah. I mean,
they've never. This is water that they've just really have never treaded before. They one time I think they shared it. They did share a conference title once, but other than that, it's not like they have like kind of buoyed up and bounced around that top. They haven't. And so to see some success at this level, at this dominance, it's pretty fun. Enjoyable to see. So I hope that continue. And
the difficulty for them, which they have handled it and more than handled it so far throughout the season, is it's tougher to play when the target's on your back. And right now, I think everybody looks at them as the highest ranked team in the Big Ten, and so that they probably are the favorite to win it. So every game is an opportunity, for somebody in that league to go make their mark and knock them off. And it's harder to play when you're on the top and everybody's trying to knock you down.
Yep. Ryan texted in from Michigan. IU will rebound versus Northwestern and get back on track. They need someone to step up and take the reins on the court leadership. Exactly what we've talked about. And you mentioned specifically with someone like Al Durham.
Yeah, I think Al really needs to be that guy. I mean, Devontae is going to be your scorer. I think we're all, everybody understands that. And I think Al and everybody on the team understands that. He's going to have games he shoots better than others. But he's not going to be your floor leader. And I think Al really needs to be that guy.
Why do you think it is that we're 14 or however many games into the season and still saying that person
but when we started the year out, who was trading being player of the game the first 5 games of the season? Who was
Jackson Davis? Trace Jackson Davis?
Nope.
Well, you don't think so?
Justin Smith and Al Durham. They were the leading scorers going back and forth. Now, Trace Jackson Davis was the level guy all the way through, and I think maybe in the third
he
or
was
fourth
getting
game,
double-doubles.
The game he was getting – yeah, okay, but my point is early in the season, Justin Smith and Al Durham were having between 17 and 24 points a game between the two of them. And now, if one of them gets 12 points, we're elated. And they're the guys whose play, to me, has dropped off. We didn't even have Rob Finney playing at that point in time. We were looking forward to the opportunity when we could add him to that punch. And right now, like Justin Smith, the shots that Justin Smith took in the game against Maryland, I will live with all day long. He took a bunch of little runners in the lane, one-handed jump hooks, and I think he made 3 out of 6 or something along those lines of. But I want him to take more of those. I'll take as many of those as he can possibly shoot inside the lane in there. And so he and Al Durham's, almost all of Al Durham's shots were driving down the lane, no passes, driving straight in and shooting a layup. Yeah, that's not – yes, I want him to push the ball. I don't quite think Al's understanding – They kept doing inside the huddle, and they were talking to Archie Miller, and he was, he kept saying, I don't want to see you walk the ball down the court. I want you to push the ball down the court. And I think Al is mistakenly translating that into I need to drive down the lane and shoot it as fast as I can. Because he keeps doing that game in and game out. He'll have 1 or 2 or 3 times. Now, when he finishes and it goes in.
Wouldn't that take one conversation to say, hey, that's not what I mean. Here's what I mean?
In the old days, yes.
I guess he spoke a different language back then.
Yeah, it was a louder, more aggressive language.
So, but they've got they've got to take care of this stuff, though. We keep saying that.
They do. They've got – look, I don't see the comparison between this year's team and last year's team at all. I know Fish said it. I know you've said it a couple of times.
Well, not talent-wise.
I don't see it.
Not talent-wise.
I don't see anything that's a compare. I don't see anything that is the same. So I'm not worried about that kind of situation. But I think this team's potential is so much higher. I mean, this is not a team that should struggle to get into the NCAA tournament. This is a team that should right now be fighting for a 3 seed. I mean, they should be trying to go, 15-5 in the Big Ten and have a 3 seed. That's how good I think this team can be.
I just don't see him playing. We a big topic has been, playing with fire and determination. I don't see determination from the tip from these guys a lot of time. I'm like, where's this fire? And I was kind of making light of it, I think, yesterday, that maybe they need to have Tom Allen bring them out once and just get them jacked up, because maybe they need to experience that level of exuberance to know that it's there, because I don't see that. And as an athlete, you got to have that in you. And because if it's not, you're never going to explode.
Yeah. I mean, Coach Knight used to consider all that a bunch of rah-rah nonsense. And so, like it's funny because we used to go up to Purdue, and when we would be coming out, getting ready to go on the floor before the game would start in a Purdue game, in their locker room, we could hear the music blaring in their locker room. Like, so loud, it was incredible. Like, we thought it was too loud, and we were out in the hallway. And we were just like, what in the world is going on? Because our locker room is always dead silent. Like, you want to talk about getting hyped up before a game, it ain't happening on Coach Knight's watch, that's for sure. Because your hype is when you go out there and the band starts playing and you get yourself ready to play.
But you had guys that already had that in them. That's what I'm saying. I'm not seeing that drive. I personally am not seeing this exuberant over-level drive that I really want to be doing this. I want to be making these plays. I'm going to give everything I have every minute. I don't see that. And that's not how it used to be. And I'm not saying trying to compare eras. I'm just saying I'm not seeing that from this team.
Yeah, you're saying we've got a bunch of cool guys, and I completely agree. We do have a bunch of cool guys. We got a bunch of guys that their hair's not out of place, and they look good out there.
Man, it's not working for them. And
no, it ain't working for us either.
It's not working, but. It's not something they're going to be able to mess around with in this league, and that's you think that they have to know that already, just because they pay attention to what's going on when Michigan does what they've done, or either way, getting beat or beating somebody big. They know it. You pay attention to it. Guys are paying attention to who's doing what. They watched the Michigan State game, or they know about it. They know about what Illinois did to Purdue and pay attention to that stuff. But it's just. Man, I think why are they not seeming to play like they're in a position?
Your frustration right now is probably exactly what the coaches' frustrations are, and it's exactly what all of the Indiana fans' issues are. In that, I think we're sitting there watching it, going, "I feel like I care more than these players look like they care," and that's probably not the case, but the fact that you're even able to think it is the issue. I mean, that's really the biggest issue, in my opinion, is, I want these guys at the end of a game, I want them to look so mentally and physically drained, like they gave 150,000% the entire game. Or if they were in there for 7 minutes, or if they were in there for 37 minutes, I want them to look really worn out. And I think there's a few of our guys that barely even have to shower after the game.
We've talked about what the expected wins are, what we think that Indiana can do. Your thoughts on that? We've had that, and Tim texted and he goes, what about that road game at Rutgers now? How does it look? Does that still look like a given? And I don't think so.
It's not none of them are given. The only one that would be a given would be Northwestern, and we don't play there. So none of them are givens, but it's a really good – it's a should win. It's a should-win game. I mean, I will not back off of that. That's a should-win game. At Nebraska is a should-win game.
What if Nebraska continues to improve? They've already proven they can beat.
It's a should-win game no matter what. It's a should-win game. No matter what happened here at home. I mean –
And I agree with you, because if you're going to be that team, then you should win those games.
They should win. The only ones that would be a fluke win on the road would be at Michigan State, probably at Michigan, and at Ohio State. Those are probably the only three that would be – you would really feel like you're stealing one on everybody.
I promise you right now, if Indiana was at Illinois or at Iowa, they would not be the favorite.
No, they won't be the favorite when they're at Rutgers. They won't be the favorite when they're at Penn State. They won't be the favorite when they're at any of those. But that being the favorite doesn't, in my world, doesn't mean whether you should win or not. You take my 5 players that are on the court. Forget where the game is. Let's just say it's a neutral site. You take my 5 players that I put out on the court for Indiana, and you take their 5 players that they put on the court, and my 5 guys are more talented at more of the positions than what yours are. Indiana should win those games, and that's just how I
agree with you. It's just like a lot of people try to use this football season. Indiana did not beat a single team with a winning record, and there's some people like to say, "Oh, wait a minute, what about that Nebraska game?" Yeah, well, they should have won that Nebraska game because they were better than Nebraska, and therefore they should have won the game. I don't care that Nebraska was a 2.5-point favorite; doesn't matter. Indiana should have won that game. So
if you take all history and throw them out the window, you take Indiana's bad history and throw it out the window, and you take Nebraska's old history and you throw it out the window, and you put those 2 teams down on paper, Indiana should win that football game at Nebraska.
Jennifer Land,
those are just facts.
Jennifer Land, you're right. The lack of a strong leader on this team seems to really hurt Indiana basketball. The lack of enthusiasm is evident, and unfortunately it affects her enthusiasm. So we got to don't forget to text us in if you'd like to, 812-269-6367. Keep the text coming. You guys have been killing it this morning. We appreciate you. Coming up next here on Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle Lane, Mike Schumann is going to join us. We'll continue our talk into IU football, basketball, whatever you like. More coming up from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lewis, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville.
Bad theater seats, cheap Halloween masks, my apartment, all things with obstructed views. Add to these large trucks and buses. 18-wheelers and large buses have big blind spots, and like my apartment, they don't always have the best view. Bus and truck drivers deal with blind spots around the entire vehicle. Always take care not to ride alongside or too close behind them. Our roads, our safety. Learn more at sharetheroadsafely.gov.
You're on the line with Jamal Meeks, former Indiana Hoosier, number 23, 1992. And I'm on the beat with Jim Coyle.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Coyle Lee with you here on this Monday, January 6th. Joined now by our good friend Mike Schumann from the Daily Hoosier. Michael, how are you?
Oh, it's been a better last few days after some rough times for Indiana over the last week.
Yeah, not a fun time. I was down in Florida, of course. We've talked a lot about the bowl loss, the reasons for the bowl loss, the what could have been in the bowl game. It's just it was a great opportunity, I think, squandered by Indiana. And, of course, that's not something we've not said before, unfortunately. And I think that's the frustrating thing, is it's something that we've said too many times before, a great opportunity squandered by Indiana.
Yeah, there's no doubt that fourth quarter was a squandered opportunity. I mean, I've kind of already moved on. I've heard enough people say that, it's the same old Indiana. They didn't beat anybody, blah, blah, blah. I don't buy any of that. I mean, I just think, if you just take a step back, forget about the fourth quarter as awful as it was, and just take the big picture view, I think this is a program that's clearly headed in the right direction. And if you asked anybody going into the season, would you have taken an 8-5 record? I don't think there's anybody that would have had any issue with that whatsoever. And so I think that's what you have to do at this point, is just move on, put that fourth quarter behind you and say, you know what, it is better than it was. It is different right now. I'm not saying it's going to be, the start of a new dominant era of Indiana football, but if you're looking for a stepping stone, my God, that 8-5 winning record in the Big Ten was absolutely just that.
Absolutely. And speaking of moving forward, they've got two coaching spots they've got to fill now. Of course, none more important than that offensive coordinator's position, which is going to be I've said it before, Tom Allen's going to be very, very popular at the coaches convention that they're heading to. And I know he's already gotten a lot of phone calls over it. So he's got the resources to fill this the best way possible, because they have the money to pay, and the people that are applying know that too. But they also see they've got a lot of talent coming back and playing in the Big Ten. There's a lot of opportunity. So I'd say that is he's going to be getting a lot of phone calls yet.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the Indiana offensive coordinator job, I don't think it's ever been more attractive than it is right now, for a lot of the reasons you said, playing in the Big Ten, a program trending in the right direction, but more than anything, just the offensive talent that they've got coming back. I mean, obviously, first and foremost, a quarterback with Penix and the guys behind him. You got all the running backs coming back. You got a very talented wide receiver group. Obviously, some losses there, but some younger guys that some people may not even know about that are coming back as well. I don't think there's going to be any big drop off at wide receiver as long as you have Walt Pillier in that equation. Probably the biggest question mark is at offensive line, but I think there's the potential there for that group to be really strong as well if Coy Cronk comes back and some of the guys in the interior, like a Dylan Powell, who's transferring over from Stanford and started in the Pac-12. I think that could be a strength as well. So I think it's a very attractive opportunity. I think, like you said, Indiana has the money to pay in ways that they haven't historically. So I think, when you talk about guys, even, low major head coaches, I think could consider the job and, triple their salary overnight. So I think all things considered, I think Indiana should be in a position to put somebody in that spot that, obviously DeBoer is going to be really hard to replace, but I think they can find a really attractive guy to replace him.
Now, and Indiana's not the only team in the Big Ten East that's looking for an offensive coordinator. Michigan State also doing the same, as D'Antonio was all but forced to make a change up there, as they did not have a very good season. But that's something else, because you've got guys that recently come available. Was a Mississippi State coach that was fired, who's been looked at as a potential candidate for an offensive coordinator position somewhere. But you've seen other teams in the past do this. You got to make some tough decisions in the off season, and getting these right coaches in these right positions is going to be critical for Tom Allen, I think, to continue the momentum that they have.
Yeah, man. Of course, it never happens in a vacuum, unfortunately. There's always guys to compete against, and Michigan State, for a lot of reasons is, an interesting one to watch. I mean, I wrote yesterday that if there's a team in the Big Ten East that you look at and you think, who's Indiana going to kind of gain a little bit of ground on and maybe start to jump over, that's the team. I mean, they had a few down years here over the last 5 years. I think there's some frustration there. They haven't been recruiting at an incredibly high level, not really any higher than Indiana over the last few years. So that's a team that, you talk about this hiring decision, that it could go a long way in deciding, can Indiana take the next step and get past a program like Michigan State. It's a lot to ask, but that's what has to happen too. If you want to start to, change the direction of a program over the long term instead of just 1 year.
And then on the basketball side of things, me and Todd have been talking about it a lot this morning. But one of the things we haven't talked a lot about, I've mentioned it, but there's the frustration, the fan frustration. It's starting to boil up a little bit more now than at any point we've seen, I think, in the Archie Miller era. People are starting to get a little more worried, maybe even more so than they were last year when you had this losing streak. But it's there again already, and that can't be fun or helpful to have to deal with, in addition to the problems you're already dealing with.
Yeah, and I think it's understandable frustration because of what happened last year. I mean, fans have the perspective of watching this team and this program lose 12 out of 13, and they're sitting there thinking, here we go again, right or wrong. That's what people are seeing and feeling right now. And so I think it's incumbent on Miller and his staff to find something different, because what I'm seeing is a lot like last year, especially on the offensive end. I'm seeing defenses pack in their defense and force Indiana to beat them on the perimeter, and that's obviously not happening. And so I'm really curious for you and Todd's perspective on one or two things that need to change. For me, first and foremost is getting away from this big lineup, not entirely, but I can't see how you can continue on with the three players of Justin Smith, Joey Brunk, and Trace Jackson Davis all on the floor at the same time. I don't think it works. I think it's too many guys that are not versatile offensively, that don't allow you to do anything other than score at the rim. And when you have defenses packing it in and specifically preventing that, I don't think that's a formula for success on the offensive end.
I'll leave it to the resident expert.
Yeah, I mean, if we had our druthers and I could handle the substitutions, I wouldn't start Joey Brunk, and I would have him be my guy that comes in and relieves Trace Jackson Davis. I think that's the only way I would be okay with Trace Jackson Davis taking more than maybe 3 2-minute breaks throughout the entire game. Like he's a 34-minute guy to me. And I don't care. I honestly don't care how many mistakes he makes. He's that good. He's got to be on the floor. And so, yeah, I'm with you 100% in that. One of the guys that I would, maybe have a little tighter rein on right now would be Justin Smith. And that would be, he's either going to change his style of play, which I honestly think in the Maryland game, I think he did. The only thing he really didn't do is dominate the boards. But offensively, he took 3 jump hooks inside the lane, and he took a fadeaway jumper that was probably about a foot farther out than I wanted it to be. But he backed his man in, and he at least was trying to play with his back to the basket. That's a super positive, because that's the first time we've seen him do that in the first 14 games of this season. So at the end of the day, some players are going to have to step up and make shots. I mean, we're going to continue to be frustrated and talk about this game in and game out, and they're going to have to figure out somebody that can come in and score from the outside, because right now they're continuing to allow Armand Franklin, who shoots 20% from the three-point line. They're allowing him to shoot. They're allowing Jerome Hunter to shoot, who shoots 13% from the three-point line. And they're allowing Justin Smith to shoot three-pointers and Demezy Anderson to shoot three-pointers. All of these guys shoot 25% or less from the three-point line. And that's just unacceptable. Like, I don't see how that's allowable.
Well, you got Thomas texting in. I hate to be that fan, but I don't see any player development, and we have no reason to think turn around. Dayton is even better. That says a lot.
So they think Trace Jackson Davis came in this good? That's what I disagree with. That's wrong. Trace Jackson Davis is as good as he is right now because of player development.
I agree. I watched him play several times last year, and he's nowhere near this good. He's
not even remotely
close. Vastly.
So what is the answer? Getting better players to develop, I would think?
No, I honestly don't, because you know what that translates to from a fan's perspective? That translates to we need 5 stars. That's what I disagree with. We need guys who are willing to come in and play as a team and are willing to come in and do the little things and do the dirty work, get the ball where it needs to go, play with leadership, play with basketball IQ. We need that. It's not a matter of better players. It's not a matter of it. I think these guys that are there are more than capable of it. Rob Finney is not a selfish player. Al Durham is not a selfish player. Armand Franklin is not a selfish player. Those guys have the ability to do it. They've got to one, take it on themselves, but two, yes, there's a part of it. Like I blame Coach Allen and the special teams coordinator for the blunders they made at the end of that ball game. Yes, you have to hold some blame on the coaching staff, from Archie all the way down to Mike Rowe. Every coach on that staff has the ability to go work with those guys and get them to understand how important they can be in other ways other than just scoring the basketball. And as soon as it clicks with one of them and they figure that out, I think we'll start to see better development in the team overall.
Zach Tex said, "Good morning, guys. I'm listening to you on Spreaker." Well, thank you very much. With this team lacking shooters, why can't Cooper get minutes? At least try to give it. I have, Mike. That is a question that I have talked to Todd about for several of the last couple of games. I'm like, you know what? I'm not a big guy. I forget to just throwing somebody in there. That's what I'm thinking. But it just seems like he kind of has that edge look to him, like he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, and we know he can shoot. So I'm like, why not give him a shot? Especially the other day in the last minutes of that game. Man, he should have been in there for those last 3 minutes, soaking up a little valuable playing time to maybe get a glimpse of or just get that little experience. But why not put him in?
Definitely in the last 3 or 4 minutes. I have no problem with that. But this comes up every year when a team is struggling. It reminds me last year of the fans saying, we got to get Clifton more minutes. We got to get Jake Forrester more minutes. And both those guys are no longer with the program. And for the most part, that wasn't their own choice. That why they're no longer with the program. Cooper is a great story. He's a great kid, and he's obviously a good basketball player, or he wouldn't be on the program in any capacity. But based on people I've spoken to, he's not going to come in and make a difference for Indiana. He could certainly be a guy that could send a message and play the right way and do the right things. But if you're looking for offensive firepower, he's not going to be that guy.
Gotcha.
Yeah, well, I get what you're saying. I've been the guy all along who's kind of been saying we can win with what we've got. I'm not interested in shaking up the lineup, except for these last 4 or 5 ball games. We've seen poor guard play. It's just lack of a better way to say. I mean, in the last 2 games alone, we have had the ball dribbled off of a guard's foot 5 times. And that's with no defensive pressure. That's literally a guy dribbling off his foot. It goes straight to the defensive guy, and it's a turnover. 5 times from our guard play. Cooper Bybee could do that. I can assure you he couldn't do worse than that. So
Ron sent us a text in the other day that – I'm sorry. You were I was just going to finish that up by saying I know
I do know for a fact, just because I've watched him shoot around in warmups, I know he has good mechanics and he can make a shot. He may go in there and he's not going to shoot worse than 13% from the 3-point line. And if I go across Jerome Hunter's line all the way across, I would guarantee you that Cooper Bybee will get just as many rebounds as Jerome Hunter's getting if he had played the same amount of minutes throughout this season.
And probably shoot a higher percentage.
And if he didn't shoot a higher percentage, he wouldn't even be on the walk-on status for me anymore. I'd get rid of him and go over to the hyper and find somebody that can shoot higher than 13%. I could shoot better than 13% today from my living room.
And that's my point. Why not when what you have is not close?
It's not working.
It is not close to being acceptable. So why not try something different just because whatever you're doing, it ain't working?
Yeah, my issue with all of that is it's not equal opportunity, okay? This is not – there's no equal opportunity when it comes to playing time. And Jerome Hunter has not, in my opinion – now, I have not been to a single practice. I am telling you what I have watched in 14 basketball games. Jerome Hunter has not earned 1 second on that floor. And somehow, every single game, he gets on the floor. So there's no one that looks tired enough to me that they have to put him in there because everyone else is just that tired. You've got to earn your way onto that floor. And I've never seen Jerome Hunter earn his way onto the floor, ever.
I think it's a loyalty thing.
Yeah, I've got to believe, you mentioned not seeing him in practice. I got to believe that he's showing something in practice that gives the coaches confidence because you're right. He's not showing us anything on the floor that gives anyone any confidence. You want to give the guy the benefit of the doubt because of what he's been through. But at some point that goes by the wayside, obviously. Todd, you mentioned Finney, and he's the guy that I really point to. It's interesting you use the word, selfish or not being selfish. To me, he needs to be more selfish. When you look at the guards and you look at the guys that you can trust with the ball and are going to do the right things, to me, he's the guy that he is a gifted scorer. He doesn't always show it, but he is a gifted scorer. And to me, he's the guy that you got to push and say, dude, you got to look for your shot. You got to score because nobody else is doing it other than Green on the perimeter, who's as we all know, is so hit or miss and so risky that I don't think you want to push him to score anymore.
Yeah, no. I agree with everything you said along those lines. But Finney, like I've been saying this for a couple of games, and I can't put my thumb on it. I don't know what it is with him, but something mentally is going on with him. I mean, I agree. At the end of that Arkansas game, he wasn't even on the floor. I mean, after he almost airballed those two technical free throws, at the critical point at the end of that game, okay, let's forget the fact that we consider him. You call him a good scorer. I call him a capable scorer. He's more than capable of being able to score. But we all know he's the best defensive player that we have. And at the end of that ball game, when you need stops, we don't even have him on the court. And so that tells me, without question, there's something going on that we all don't know about. And I don't want to stir the pot and make it seem like there's something that there isn't. I'm just saying the coaching staff has said in the past, and I think all of us would agree in what we watch on the court, that Rob Finney is our best defensive player. We're playing against a team with a bunch of good guards on it that we need stops at the end of a game, and we don't even have Rob Finney on the floor. Something's going on with him that we don't know about. Otherwise, none of that makes any sense. And so we were kind of in the same position in this Maryland game in that their guards are some of their best players and do a lot of their scoring, and Rob Finney was almost non-existent in this basketball game. And that's a position we really expected a lot more out of, and it's not getting. I mean, I said earlier you weren't listening when I was talking earlier, but Al Durham to me is the guy who's got to step up. He's proven a little bit of leadership capability. To start this season out, Justin Smith and Al Durham were kind of trading places back and forth as to who was the leading scorer in the game. And Al had a couple games where I don't think he missed a shot. He was like 4 for 4 from the 3-point line. We were really counting on double-digit scoring out of him. And right now, if he scored double digits, I think we'd all throw a party.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mike, anything you got coming up that the fans need to be knowing about?
Well, with your help after this conversation, what I've been working on this morning is just kind of what needs to change mid-season, because I think, status quo is not going to cut it here. I think you're going to have to see some philosophical, some schematic changes, some lineup changes to get this thing going in a different direction than what we talked about, that the fans are worried about. It's going to be a repeat of last year. So appreciate the help, and people can look for that.
Feel free to quote us.
I'll quote Todd, Jim. Don't worry.
That's what I meant. All right, Mike, have a great day, man. We appreciate you.
All right, guys. Have a great one.
Mike Schumann from the Daily Hoosier. Make sure you check out free IU content there at dailyhoosier.com. Lots to talk about. We got lots more to talk about, too. Plenty more to get to. We got a lot of texts on the show. And make sure you hit us up on the text line, 812-269-6367, if you can. I know we got a lot of messages coming in through that Facebook page as well, but it's harder to monitor all that stuff. But we're trying to. But we got lots more coming up. Stay tuned. Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, back with more from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs, Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dawkins.
Hey, this is Michael Lord, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville.
Bad theater seats, cheap Halloween masks, my apartment, all things with obstructed views. Add to these large trucks and buses. 18-wheelers and large buses have big blind spots, and like my apartment, they don't always have the best view. Bus and truck drivers deal with blind spots around the entire vehicle. Always take care not to ride alongside or too close behind them. Our roads, our safety. Learn more at sharetheroadsafely.gov.
Hey, this is Jordan Halls, former Indiana Hoosier. Keep up with Indiana sports on Indiana Sports Beat.
Hey, Jim, I'm going to have at least...
Back to Indiana Sports Beat. What was that?
Sorry. I thought we were still at a commercial. My bad.
Yeah, I was like, oh, nope, man, too late. Somebody's already pulled the ripcord. We're out the door, man.
It's a good thing I didn't throw in my usual cuss words when we're off the air.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle Leary here on this Monday, January 6th. Man, it has been another rapid, fast show. My gosh. Man, we're not even done. We don't have – it's like there's not enough time today to talk about everything.
Don Fischer, of course, was on today.
No, it's just been – there's a lot to talk about. We appreciate Mike Schumann just joining us. I'll get to that later when we close out. But, yeah, man, we didn't even get to the really talk about much. The Tom Brady to the Colts thing, that's real. That is for real.
That's just fun to think. That's just fun.
Do you think for a second it's not a possibility with Jim Irsay involved? You got to be kidding me.
Oh, man, Tom, you want to come play here for the Colts, man? It'd be great. We'd have Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. It couldn't be any better, man.
Yeah, that's
I'm ready for them. I'm ready. Honestly, it would be a fun. It would just be a fun scenario. However, they need to start thinking more long-term franchise quarterback.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm just throwing that out there.
It would just be a fun little Band-Aid fix for 2 years or whatever. But
well, there's other stuff to talk. I mean, like tomorrow, man, this is going to be something we talk about for a minute, but Peyton Ramsey to Fresno State or elsewhere, very, very real possibility. It's probably a probability.
I'll bet it doesn't happen. My guess is it does not happen.
Well, I mean, there's some people that think that as well, and it depends. Like Don mentioned it, and I've said it before. His future, Peyton Ramsey's future, is not in the NFL. It's not in professional football. He wants to be a coach, but he's got one more year of eligibility. So why not play? And knowing that he wants to be a coach, do you go get exposed to a different system just for the learning aspect of it, or do you just try to find a place to go play, or do you stay right where you are and use this as a coaching year as well?
And we know how loyal Tom Allen is, and so he probably adds him to the staff right after the year's over.
That's my point. And another thing, yes, he could just become a graduate assistant right at Indiana, and who knows? I promise you, with the loyalty that's there, that he could work himself into I could see him being the offensive coordinator at Indiana in 5 years or something.
In 2 years.
I mean, because he will have had that experience. He will have had – because that's the one player, a quarterback, you are half an offensive coordinator because you've got responsibilities, checkdowns and reads and this and that and all the things you have to do and the changes you have to make. That's going on. So he's got that. Plus, his dad's a coach. He grew up a coach's son. I mean, it's in his DNA. So, yeah, he's already halfway there. So,
and
who knows?
And as an Indiana fan, I think Indiana would be extremely lucky to have him stay around.
Of course.
For no other reason than the fact that I think we're all just assuming that Michael Penix is going to win the job again. But he has – I mean, it's not like this guy took a hit where we were all like, oh, yeah, that's the hit that he – that's the one that got him hurt. He got hurt like 7 times throughout the year, and he's fragile. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it any other way. Michael Penix showed in his freshman year he's fragile. And so any hit on him could end the season for him. Indiana would be lucky to have Peyton Ramsey still be around.
They were lucky this year to have Peyton Ramsey
for sure,
still
no
around.
doubt about it. I'm not even saying that to be,
no, I know.
kind of a jerk about it. I mean, hey, Lamar Jackson, look at what I said this the other day. Look at Robert Griffin III. When he came out, everybody was like, oh, my gosh, he's changing the quarterback position. And then he got hurt, and nothing ever changed. We went right back to whatever. Lamar Jackson is the same exact player right now. He's that same guy, and the one thing he does, he takes those hits, and he hops right back up. Will he continue to be able to do that for 5 years? No one has ever done it. No one's ever been able to do it.
And that has what's made Lamar Jackson different is he has had this uncanny ability to not allow guys to get a clean shot on him.
To get a good hit on him, yeah.
He's like a snake, man. It's freaky weird.
But it just takes that one. I mean, look at yesterday. Look at
Philadelphia Eagles
Carson
yesterday.
Wentz. Look at Carson Wentz yesterday. It took that one play and changed their entire season.
How's that not flagged? How's that penalty not flagged? Helmet to helmet? Led to a concussion that drove the quarterback out of the game, really?
Yeah, I mean...
You think he's not going to get fined?
I don't know.
I don't see how he couldn't. I don't see how he couldn't. Man, golly, I love when these shows go this fast, but then I hate it because it's like
We're not done, man. We're not done.
Yeah, that's why we're back tomorrow.
Got to wait till tomorrow for more. But, man, we appreciate everybody. And we appreciate everybody joining us for After the Games shows as well. I mean, man, these continue to grow. We really appreciate the fans. Couldn't thank you enough. Of course, we're back Wednesday. Indiana at home against Northwestern at Simon Scott Assembly Hall. And that our telecast should begin around 9 because the game should be over around then, 7 o'clock tip. But, yeah, man, they continue to grow, Todd. We're very excited about that.
Yep, no doubt about it. The team, if we want to give them credit for anything, they give us a lot to talk about after the games are over, good and bad. So we have had fun doing those shows from Yogis, and this week, this is a fun week. You got 2 home games. The Wednesday game is a game that they will win. It'll be a matter of how well they play, and hopefully they gain a bunch of confidence out of it. And then that Saturday game, I think it's an early game. Isn't that a noon game on Saturday?
Yes, it is.
That'll just be, that's one where you're playing a team that's, going into the week, they were ranked in the top 5. They'll probably still be in the top 10, even though they took a home loss. But, playing against Ohio State, that'll be a big time game. That's a game. If Indiana can come away with the win on that one, it'll be a confidence builder and separate them from a lot.
It's a gut check. It's a gut check.
No doubt. No doubt.
And Indiana's got to see where they are, man. If they want to play at the level of play in this league that's going to take to get to the NCAA tournament, they've got to come up and start.
Can I stoke the rumor fire on the attendance of that game on Saturday? Am I allowed to do that on the show?
You're allowed to do whatever you want, man.
Well, I have a strong feeling. First of all, let me just preface it by saying this. It's a former player and manager alumni game where there's going to be just a ton of former players and managers returning back to that game. And the last event that took place at the Bluebird that had that same scenario take place also had a former coach as a visitor. Is that teaser enough for you?
Works for me.
Okay. Well,
we'll be talking about it. We'll be talking about it all week. It's
going to happen, people.
There's a lot of reasons that goes into the possibility of that thought, and that I agree with. I mean, it's just kind of like, here's a recipe. What do you think? It looks like that cake's going to work. So we'll see. And it's going to be pandemonium. I mean, if that turns out to be the case, I'm trying to imagine. And you talk about, I don't think Archie Miller could have asked for a better game than for that if it does happen, because that will put a frenzy into that crowd like nothing else. And they're going to need that against the Ohio State Buckeyes on Saturday. And maybe that's a difference maker. Maybe that's the energy that team needs, and they can feed on that. But boy, oh boy, can you imagine what that's going to be like in there?
Well, here's the funny part with that is, these players have all heard of, they know the history of IU. They've heard it. They see the banners. They know how crazy the fans are. I mean, the fans are crazy about basketball, but they're crazy about talking about the old days. And these guys have all heard of Bob Knight. They know everything that's gone on. But they would see a scene that even would shock them if he is introduced at that game. If Coach Knight is introduced at that game, these players would see, and I think even Archie Miller would see what everything was all about and how everything was looked at in the past.
You're going to be needing earplugs.
It'd be insane. It'll be insane.
Yeah, I don't know how you restore order. I mean, if they do it at halftime, I don't know how you. I don't know how you restore order.
I don't know. I don't either.
I mean, we're guessing now. We're guessing now. We're going off of a complete guess. Todd,
you are
okay.
Damn it, I'm trying here. You quit speaking for me. You speak for yourself, brother.
Damn it, I'm trying here. But yeah, it's wow. Mm-hmm. We haven't. I'm glad we didn't talk about this much at the beginning of the show because it kind of dominates once you open that can of worms. Whew. They're everywhere.
Let's just say it would be a good time to be there, and I'm going to be there.
We're going to talk about it more tomorrow, I'm sure, more the rest of this week. Don Fischer was on the program today. Cannot thank the voice of the Hoosiers enough, as always. I love to hear what his thoughts always are. Mike Schumann from the Daily Hoosier joined us as well. Man, we had plenty to talk about. Heard from Archie Miller. One thing that we need to talk about tomorrow that we didn't talk about today is whoever this new AD is going to be, he's handcuffed right now with Archie Miller's contracts and now with Tom Allen's brand new contract. You know, he comes in kind of handcuffed a little bit with his two profile coaches. That's something that we can talk about as well. But plenty more to get to, man. It was a fun one as always, Todrick.
Yes, sir, it was. Look forward to the rest of the week.
Thanks a lot to Jake for keeping us on the track. And until tomorrow, we'll hear from Chronic Hoosier, of course. But thanks a lot to Todd. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle, and I will see you on the radio.